Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our first ever virtual edition of #BISB. For those of you that don't already know me, allow me to introduce myself. I am Dana, BISB's Head of Simplicity. This is an incredibly important event to the bank, to the bank's management, to its partners, and to the faces of BISB, the bank's lifeblood, the very people that bring these ideas to life. It's here that we shed light on the bank's biggest innovations that we have launched and the milestones we have achieved, and we have not stopped innovating, doing the work, and finding technology-based solutions that will simplify people's lives for years to come. Time is of the essence, and we have a lot planned to show you. My grand debut was at the bank's first edition of #BISB in March last year, where we celebrated the bank's 40-year anniversary. So it's with great honor that I have the pleasure to introduce to you our bank CEO, Mr. Hassan Jarrar.
Thank you, Dana, for that warm introduction. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope that you are all well. This year, we are delivering this event in a brand new way to all of you directly, whether you're home or office. Because in typical BISB fashion, we wanted to do things a little differently. Allow me the honor first of introducing our Chairman of the Board, Dr. Essam Abdullah Fakhru.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يسرني أن أرحب بكم في فعالية #BISB الرقمية الأولى، حيث يعتبر عام 2020 عام التغيير والتحول. لقد استطعنا خلاله اكتساب معرفة أكبر عن كيفية مواجهة التغيرات ومدى أهمية التكيف والتأقلم معها. وقد اجتزنا ولله الحمد هذه الفترة بنجاح، مع حفاظنا على قيمنا ورؤيتنا والتزامنا بكافة أهدافنا ومسؤولياتنا. وبصفتنا مؤسسة مصرفية رئيسية في مملكة البحرين، فنجدد التزامنا بالمساهمة بتعزيز تنمية الاقتصاد البحريني وتحقيق التطلعات والرؤى الاقتصادية للمملكة، مؤكدين حرصنا على الابتكار وسعينا الدائم لتطوير وتحسين خدمات زبائننا ونقلها إلى مستويات جديدة من التميز. هذا إلى جانب منحهم أفضل الحلول التي تلبي احتياجاتهم وتواكب تطلعاتهم. ونجحنا في بنك البحرين الإسلامي عبر منصاتنا الرقمية ومنتجاتنا وخدماتنا المبتكرة من تبسيط المعاملات المصرفية لزبائننا لتكون أكثر سهولة وسرعة. وقد ساهم ذلك بتمهيد طريق رحلة التحول الناجحة للبنك ليواصل معها مسيرة التميز مع المحافظة على جذوره البحرينية والإسلامية. وسنتابع بإذن الله بذل أفضل الجهود لتعزيز مركزنا الريادي في القطاع المصرفي والمالي بالمملكة، كما سنحرص على تطبيق مفهوم الابتكار في كافة أهداف ورؤى البنك، بجانب اعتمادنا لتقنيات متطورة لتعزيز التجربة المصرفية للزبائن والارتقاء بالخدمات المصرفية بالمملكة إلى آفاق جديدة. وعلاوة على ذلك سنستمر بوضع العنصر البشري في مقدمة أولوياتنا، بما في ذلك فريق عملنا الذين نعتبرهم ثروتنا الحقيقية في البنك. إننا فخورون بما أنجزناه سابقا، ونتطلع بآمال كبيرة للمستقبل وما يحمل معه من فرص وإمكانيات غير محدودة. وسنواصل النهج الذي مكننا من الوصول لهذا المستوى من النجاح، وسنظل ملتزمين بإخلاص لزبائننا ومساهمينا وشركائنا على مستوى العمل، وكذلك المجتمع ككل. هذا هو وعدنا والتزامنا، وسنثابر بعملنا في البنك لمواصلة الإبداع والابتكار. وستتعرفون خلال الدقائق القادمة على أحدث الإنجازات التي تمكنا من تحقيقها هذا العام، والتي من أهمها نجاح عملية التكامل مع بنك البحرين الوطني، مع وصولنا إلى مراحل متقدمة فيها، حيث أصبحنا الآن جزءاً من مجموعة بنك البحرين الوطني، الأمر الذي نفتخر به بصفتنا البنك الإسلامي الأول الرائد في مملكة البحرين، وكونهم البنك التقليدي الوطني الرائد في المملكة. وفي الختام، ونيابة عن مجلس إدارة بنك البحرين الإسلامي وإدارته التنفيذية، أود أن أشكركم على مشاركتكم في هذه الفعالية، متمنيا لكم المتعة والفائدة، وأن تنعموا دائما بالصحة والعافية، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you, Dr. Assam. Today I'd like to talk to you about a couple of things that I'm personally proud of. The first is an event that is the first of its kind in Bahrain. It's a unique to the industry in Bahrain. You've heard earlier in the year about the acquisition of NBB of about 80% of the shares of BISB. BISB in the last 5 years has transformed itself significantly in just about every aspect of the business. We have gone from a traditional, classic, old style, mainly manual bank into one that has become a leader in the industry in terms of digitization, innovation, and setting the example for other institutions to follow. 5 years on, BISB was missing one ingredient, and that ingredient is what I call the fuel or the financial muscle. We've come to a point where we've squeezed every bit internally that we could out of this institution, but we've come to a point where we needed the financial muscle of another institution. That's when our new parent, NBB, came in. So you have the oldest traditional conventional bank in the country and one of the most stable, mashallah, NBB. And you have the first Islamic bank in Bahrain and one of the first in the region in the form of BISB. And even though each institution will remain independent, it'll remain its autonomy. One is an Islamic license, the other one is a conventional license. We've already begun to look at ways to amalgamate, integrate certain departments between the two institutions in order to derive as much synergies as possible. These synergies could mean cost savings, it could be optimization of processes, and it could be obviously exchange of information between the two institutions. So I am very optimistic about the future of the new banking group. We call it the NBB group. So now BISB is a part of the NBB group. BISB still has a sizable number of independent shareholders, about 3,000 of them. So in everything we do, the autonomy and the independence of BISB is assured, obviously, because of the interest of the minority shareholders. I don't have to remind you of the pandemic that the entire world has gone through, and obviously Bahrain is no different. We are battling a once-in-a-century event, but I am so proud to be in Bahrain under the leadership of the Bahraini government and the direction in which this country has taken to not only battle, but also to bring this pandemic under control. So much so that we become a fine example that the WHO and certain other UN agencies use as a best in class or best practice that we do. So really proud to be part of Bahrain. Our thanks, respect, and greetings go to the leadership, the wise leadership of Bahrain, for very wisely managing this catastrophe. BISB, among, I must say, other banks in Bahrain, have become key players in assisting the government under the leadership in our sector of the central bank, of course, in carrying a big part of the load in trying to help bring Bahrain back on its feet. Many things were instituted by the CBB, but regardless of whether they were simply instructions by the CBB, I think at BISB we've done them because we feel that is the right thing to do. It's the responsible thing to do. It's the Islamic thing to do. It's the charitable thing to do. We have proudly participated in the Fina Khair campaign. We have proudly also assisted and stood by our customers, both consumer and corporate customers, in helping not only defer or freeze payments during the past 6 months, and in addition to the next 3 months as well, but also in proactively advising corporate clients on how and when they should restructure some of their facilities. And we continue to do that until our day. Something I am particularly personally proud of is the way we wanted to show thanks to the frontline people of Bahrain, the medical crews who put their lives on the line, those who haven't seen their families and loved ones for possibly days and weeks. During the past Eid, as a small goodwill gesture, we gave them the idea, and that was in the form of cash into their BISB accounts. As I said, it's a small thing to do, but we felt that it contributed greatly to the overall efforts of the country. We continue to assist. We continue to be part of this. The whole industry continues to be part of the COVID-19 battle. Inshallah, together we will overcome this in Bahrain. We've all heard the term the new normal. Well, I think you'll agree with me that there are very few things in the world that are normal anymore. We have come to have to learn to do things differently in just about everything that we do. There are industries, not just in Bahrain, but globally, that are disappearing as a result of COVID. Consumer behavior has shifted drastically as a result of COVID. People go out less, people spend less, travel is almost non-existent. So all in all, consumer behavior has changed. This in turn means that we as institutions, banks included of course, we have to adapt to the way we do business with our customers. COVID, among other things, has acted as a catalyst or catapulted BISB into accelerating what I felt all along was a very aggressive digitization campaign. We looked at COVID as a main driver to expedite the digitization of everything that we do with customers. For many reasons. I can tell you it's to save costs or to become more efficient, but the number one priority during COVID was the safety of not just BISB employees, but equally or even more importantly, the safety of BISB customers. So we did not want customers to assemble in large numbers in the branches. We did not want customers to touch paper. We did not want customers to touch paper money. All for the sake of their safety and the safety of our employees. So what we learned is that we are capable, once we put our mind into it, we are capable of changing our behavior. We are capable of accelerating in providing digital services to customers, which will ensure their safety and ensure the survivability and the safety of the BISB employees. In the next few minutes, I will go over some of these services that we have devised because of and after COVID as part of all the learnings that we have gained because of this crisis that the whole world is going through. In the next few minutes, allow me to take you through some of the innovations that BISB has achieved in 2020, and then we'll talk about what's next after all these innovations. You know, one of the most unpleasant tasks for customers that bank asks them to do is something called updating the customer information, or internally in banks we call it KYC. That stands for Know Your Customer. Every year or every 2 years, depending on the classification of the customer, the bank asks all of their customers to send updated identification information so that the bank will have proper IDs for all these customers. That generates mounds of paperwork on the part of the customer. It requires that the customers take time off work or leave their homes, go to the branch, take a number, wait in line, and provide this mound of paperwork to the staff of the bank. In turn, the staff of the bank becomes very, very busy in handling all of these mundane requirements of updating the KYC. Well, one of the things we've done at KYC to completely kill this whole transaction is something we call eKYC. And for that, I'd like to genuinely thank the Ministry of Information and Commerce, who have worked with us in giving us access to databases so we can utilize this information. So, as a BISB customer, when you get a notification by SMS or email from BISB saying it's time to update your information, all you have to do is log on your BISB mobile app, take about 3 to 4 minutes to upload the documents that are required, and then you push send, and the process goes to BISB. Incredibly comfortable, safe, and look at how much time that we're saving our customers. In February of this year, we installed what we call self-service kiosks. And we did those before COVID. And can you imagine how valuable those are after COVID when we wanted to minimize human contacts? In a nutshell, these kiosks are machines that are designed by the staff, the technical staff of BISB. We've placed them in all of our branches. And this kiosk can allow either a new customer to start a relationship with BISB or an existing BISB customer to avail a multitude of services from BISB. You get as simple as a statement, you get a checkbook, you can print a replacement card, you can apply for facilities, and so on. So in the days of COVID, that's even become more valuable. What's better is that none of these kiosks that you will see will have a brand name on it. We did not buy it from the world-leading manufacturers. What we've done is our IT staff made a trip to another country that manufactures these shells. We bought the shells, we had them painted in the bank colors, and the inside, the brain of these machines is Bahraini, homemade, home designed, home installed by the staff of BISB. Something I'm very, very personally proud of. In April, we introduced something called Cash Against Card. Log on BISB mobile app, and you have the ability to transfer cash from your BISB credit card into other BISB current accounts or savings accounts. This is a unique, one-of-a-kind service in Bahrain. Tajuri is a popular product with our customers at BISB. And people go through circumstances. So in certain cases where customers have an urgent need for money, most of the time they will go and liquidate that Tajuri, either with us or with other banks. With BISB, if that is the case, you don't have to liquidate the Tajuri and possibly lose out on maybe winning a nice prize end of the month or end of the week, depending on the scheme. What you can do at BISB is we'll give you instant finance against that Tajuri for a nominal fee without you having to liquidate. In partnership with Benefit, and this has become also a very valuable service during COVID, we have launched what we call the Tap and Go card service. In order to eliminate human contact, you simply tap your card or you wave it in front of the point of sale machine at the merchant, and the transaction is consummated. Less human contact, and obviously means much more safety during COVID. Open banking has been a focus area by the Central Bank of Bahrain. At BISB, proud to say that in cooperation with a local Bahraini firm, Tarabut Gateway, BISB now offers open banking, or what we call account aggregation services. Simply put, you can log on your BISB account on your mobile app, and you can link your accounts at other banks so that with one screen of using your mobile phone, you can actually see with full transparency all of your accounts at BISB as well as other banks. Last year, we launched the account opening process using a selfie. Simply by using your mobile app, you can open a brand new account or an additional account at BISB. This was one of a kind at the time. This year, we've done better. This year, we decided that we are able to build the same service for corporates or business customers. So as the owner of a sole proprietorship in Bahrain, you no longer have to go to the branch, bring a bunch of paperwork with you to open a bank account. It'll take you 5 minutes to open a bank account instead of what used to take anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, not just at BISB, but at most other banks. So what's next? What will innovation look like during or post-COVID? For that, please stay tuned.
Our panelist will be delving into a discussion about what the new picture of success looks like. With all that we know now, what does innovation truly looks like in a post-COVID landscape? To His Excellency Khalid Al-Rumehi, CEO of Mumtalakat, who has first-hand insight into diverse sectors across the Kingdom of Bahrain. How do you think COVID-19 has affected economic growth in the Kingdom and beyond? With the COVID-19 igniting digitization even further across multiple industries, is this trend more of a challenge or an opportunity?
Well, I think the Kingdom is no different than any country in the world in terms of how COVID-19 has impacted our economy. What COVID-19 has done, probably similar to what you would see in any country going through a disaster, a hurricane or an earthquake, it's destroyed supply and demand at the same time. We saw airplanes grounded, restaurants stopped, factories stopping production. People are not buying clothes, they're not buying coffee, they're not traveling. So that kind of demand and supply shock that happened globally, not just in one country or in one region, but in every spot in the world, is unprecedented. And that supply and demand shock happened here, and it happened in every country in the world. So now I think, and it will bring me to my point on technology, now I think we are seeing supply come back on stream, in some countries faster than others. The question is, how will demand come back? Will people buy in the same way that they used to buy? Are you going to buy as much in the shopping mall, or are you going to spend more on e-commerce? Are you going to, now that you're more comfortable transferring money through a benefit pay or a Apple Pay or what have you, are you going to go to your branch? Are you going to now expect to do more through technology? Are you going to now be more comfortable with telemedicine? And therefore, will you really want to go to your doctor? So the question that I think we are all evaluating is, how will demand come back? And because supply is coming back, and I think the challenge for every company is, can you still provide your products and services in the same way that you did before COVID? What I think COVID did, to bring you to your question about technology, is it has accelerated technology adoption. Some estimates are by 50%, by 5 years. E-commerce globally recorded 22 billion visits by customers in June 2020 compared to 16 billion in January 2020. That's a 40% increase. E-commerce revenues grew to about 6.5 trillion or expected to grow to 6.5 trillion in 2022. All of these would have happened. There's no doubt that you would have seen a customer adoption of these trends. It's just been accelerated now. I know that I've seen uncles and aunts and sometimes grandparents that you would never have expected them to use, fintech or banking electronically, now tell you they have done that. So that customer adoption is accelerated. Some estimates are by 5 years. The opportunity and the challenge is whether a company whether it's a manufacturer or a bank or a university, can adapt to that customer shift or not. And I think the opportunity for those companies that adapt quickly is that they will capture new customers, they will capture market share, they will have to pivot and accelerate like the customer, what they were planning. If they were planning in 3-4 years, they need to bring that forward. They will have to be agile, and they will have to understand how technology can help them both reach that customer and also reduce cost. I think costs will increase on certain businesses. In our region, we certainly see a shift away or just a decline in oil prices that has affected every government in this part of the world. Probably a faster adoption in the West of green sustainability and green policies. I still remain optimistic about the region. I think even whether you're an aluminium producer or you are an oil producer, nobody's saying oil will disappear, but you have to adapt. And technology, we think of technology as digital banking or buying online, but it's also about using technology to manage your business better, supply chain management, energy efficiency. And I think companies will have to look at how they adapt to a model, a global model that has shifted the sands and accelerated trends that were going to happen 5 years from now.
And to the Chief Planning and Monitoring Officer of Temkeen, Dr. Yormo Kotalain, how has Temkeen adapted its businesses to support local startups and businesses during this time?
Well, I suppose the short answer is it's adapted it very significantly, very, very dramatically. And of course, part of that was led by the broader government framework around the stimulus packages, whereby Temkeen was instructed to focus its efforts and energies on providing business continuity support for companies, for qualifying companies. So we've been operating with a much narrower toolkit than usual for understandable reasons. Obviously, the objective was to minimize disruptions to economic activity, mitigate job losses, etc. I think that the benefits of sort of smoothing the curve here and working towards greater continuity have served the startup community as well, though, in the sense that obviously our support for some elements of the ecosystem has continued. And that includes, for instance, the active accelerators. We've continued to work with incubators. We've still continued to invest in awareness building, etc. And obviously there were startup businesses that qualified for some of the support that we have provided during this time. At the same time, I think that this internal re-engineering also gave us an opportunity to take a closer look at what we've achieved so far, what has worked, what hasn't worked. So we've done quite a bit of analysis on the companies that have been receiving support, as well as on the broader startup ecosystem, the effectiveness of the different measures that we've been pursuing so far. And I think that this has taken us to a point where we are now in a position to move this narrative to the next stage, if you like, to work towards a more structured, holistic startup agenda, if you like, and be in a position to support startups in a more flexible manner. I think what's interesting about what we've discovered is there are certain needs, certain pain points that come up very, very consistently. And I think that this is where the needs and opportunities lie for Temkeen, but also for other entities in the country, including BISB and the broader financial sector. And 3 points I would like to highlight in particular. Number one, there is a real need to push up the numbers of startups. The good news about the pandemic is that there is a bigger range of real economic problems to solve than there has been in a long time. So we'll be able to move on from the food delivery apps, if you like, been there, done that, and look at a broader range of relevant questions and relevant business needs. I think, secondly, there is an obvious need to boost the quality of the startups that we have. And that's an area where, of course, making the agenda more relevant and addressing these real pain points is part of the answer. It's also very clear, though, when we look at the data, there is a need to make sure that more startups are not just one man or one woman shows. It's important to bring together multiple founders, multiple skill sets, networks, experiences, and experience matters a lot. So I think initially some people have this idea startups are something for young people. Startups are something for everybody, and experience matters, and there is complementarity in diversity. And finally, however much effort we put into creating startups to turn this into an economic success story, the financial services sector has to be aligned. There has to be financing solutions for startups. There have to be clear exits. And once this starts happening in a more systematic, structured manner, then I think we'll have the makings of a virtuous cycle. A final point I would make here, if anything, this challenge that we've lived through, are still living through, I think has validated the strategic posture. This economy, as every economy around the world desperately needs new ideas, new kinds of entrepreneurship, and startups, I think, are very much here to stay. We just need to make sure that we work as quickly as we can to build on and to improve on what has been done so far.
To our CEO at BISB, Mr. Hassan Jarrar, what does success looks like for banks with all that we know now?
I think a key point here that I've always mentioned is we're looking right now during COVID is for survival. We need to stay afloat. We need to stay healthy. But speaking for my own bank, success to me means if we get to a point where we understand the shift in consumer behavior, like the Apples and the Walmarts and the Amazons of the world do, if we get to a point where not only we can understand individual customer habits, but if we can predict them, that's an amazing success. But that's is something that against the DNA of how banks operate. So we truly need to get away from the classic traditional ways of doing banking and become more technologically oriented companies that happen to offer financial services. So success to me, if I understand my customers, if I simplify their money matters, and if banking with me becomes as simple and as reliable and as inexpensive as using a mobile phone, to me that's huge success.
To our guest panelist, can you share with us your final thoughts on how you perceive the future of innovation and how do you project the impact of these changes in the local market? His Excellency, Mr. Khalid.
I think my final thought on innovation is that, we talk a lot about innovation, every conference, every panel. People pay lip service to this word. The question is, what are we doing about it? And how does the current environment change the way we work, change the way that we employ, change the way that we motivate employees? I'm certainly in my field, and I think in most fields, and we're a service economy, it is about attracting the right talent. It is about retaining that talent. And it is about ensuring that our universities are training them so that they are employable. I think the first innovation that we need to do is in how we train and educate our employees, and how we do that in the in our universities and so forth. I think anybody who's looking at technology right now, so I've talked about accelerate technology. You need to do that with people. You need to do that with individuals who know how to code, but more importantly, how to problem solve. Now, if you look for those individuals in our country, in the kingdom, but also we're not alone, in many countries of the world, there's a shortage. I think we have enough lawyers. I think we have enough doctors. Not that I'm saying that we don't need more of them, but we need more of these problem solvers, the agility to understand technology, data scientists, people who can take data and synthesize that information and produce conclusions. We need vocational education that educates people quickly and makes them fit for the workplace. So the innovation that we need to first do is in both our training and education. The countries that will win in the next couple of years are going to be those who have the talent in their country, because they will attract capital. The companies in the country will benefit from that dividend. And so I think the first innovation that we need to do is in training and education.
Dr. Yormo.
Yes, I think COVID-19, we've heard a lot of superlatives in the media about how this is a game-changing event. I think it is an inflection point globally, and it is a particularly significant turning point for the economies of the Gulf region. And while it has come with a lot of challenges, I think it is coming with even more opportunities, because what it has shown to people is that this is no longer business as usual. It has demonstrated to individuals and above all to companies that there are payoffs to adaptability. If you think and behave differently, if you jettison your default assumptions, if you like, you are more likely to succeed. And this is where innovation comes from. I mean, the old adage, that need is the mother of all, necessity is the mother of all invention, holds true. I think the alternative of complacency, the alternative of continuity has been rejected by this turn of events. And I think there are three things that I would highlight in particular as very significant, profound game changers for the region going forward. Number one is this issue that we've been talking about, the rise of technology, the rise of digitization. What this actually means is that we are now living through a period for the first time in decades when businesses in the Gulf are investing more in technology than they are in low-cost labor. And this is a big, big change from the economic perspective, and it is exactly the kind of change that economic strategists have been talking about for years. And it's something that ultimately serves the longer-term needs of these regional economies. It'll create better jobs, it'll boost productivity, and it'll boost living standards. Secondly, it has forced people to become more responsive, more dynamic. We know that for years, many companies were able to operate in a static manner because they had a lot of control over their input costs, whether because of subsidies or low-cost labor, while they were able to benefit, of course, from market prices for their outputs. Now that margins have been squeezed and market realities and customer behavior has changed, you have to adapt, and those people who are adapting are reaping the benefits and are inspiring others to follow. And it is from this kind of inherent dynamism, a new kind of more agile business culture, that ongoing improvement and ongoing productivity gains come from. And productivity globally is the key driver of living standards in the long run. And there's a lot of room for improvement. Now this is beginning to happen. Thirdly, I think there's an interesting story that we're also seeing in the labor markets, because one of the things that COVID-19 has challenged head on is the old idea of 9 to 5, sit at your desk or go to your physical location of work. We've seen that people and businesses have been able to adapt to remote work, to flexi-time work, to part-time work. And in terms of achieving inclusive growth, we know, for instance, in the Gulf, women have been participating less in the labor force than men for all the obvious reasons that we know. If we can now move to a way of living where it is possible for women to work from home with more flexible timings, with much less rigidity about the way they work, call it the gig economy, call it flexi time, whatever you want to call it, it means that in effect we are creating more employment opportunities, and we are beginning to move the Gulf labor markets in the direction that labor markets globally have been moving in for a long time. The good news about all of this is that while people have some anxieties about, what's happening to the kind of old-fashioned full-time jobs, labor markets that are more flexible are also labor markets that are more inclusive. And this is ultimately what we need.
Mr. Hassan?
We speak of innovations and we speak of startups almost in the same breath. To my mind, I think Bahrain is geared, and unfortunately COVID has been a catalyst for us to do that, for our young people to become more innovative. And like Dr. Yarmo said, it's not just about the food delivery services, but we cannot miss out on this fintech revolution. We cannot miss out on the latest technology revolution. For that, I think leaders of banks, organizations, companies, and so on, they need to take ownership of the cultural shift of the mindset and how people think in this country about everything. We need to make sure people know that it's okay to fail, but you fail quickly. You fail quickly, so you can come back and learn from it and try to do it again. It's no longer, it should no longer be a stigma that somebody fails. I think for us at BISB, we've taken the lead pre-COVID. Inshallah, we'll continue post-COVID of doing our part in helping young Bahraini startups, in so many different ways. We will be hosting teams of young startups and technology startups, not just the old classic industries. In certain locations, once we have a little bit more safety to do that, inshallah, post-COVID. But we need to learn from our failures. We need to give our young people the room to do what they want to do, because doing things the old way is no longer valid. And by the old way, I mean January of 2020. You know, the world is changing so quickly. We need to hire differently. We need to motivate younger people differently. We need to manage them differently. We need to reward them differently. And I think I go back to my original point. It's okay. You need to tell them it's okay to fail, but you need to try. And fail fast, get up and try to do it again. But we need the support and the ownership of business and industry leaders in Bahrain to do that. There is no way, there's no reason, I should say, that we cannot be another Singapore of the Middle East. We have all of the ingredients. We have the manpower, we have the education. But even at the education level, we have to shift what type of education, as Khalid so rightfully put it. We need more coders, we need more programmers, we need more data scientists, we need more statisticians, we need more analysts. So if COVID has done anything, it's become a catalyst for us to really change the way we do things, starting with the paradigm shift, the cultural shift, and letting our young people fly. The world is open. They can learn anything they want to learn nowadays without leaving Bahrain. And that would be my message for this.
Thank you to all the panelists for their time. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our Head of Corporate Communications at BISB, Mr. Ali Hassan Daij, who'll be taking you through the first BISB showcase, shedding light on the key partnerships and milestones that took place in 2020.
Assalamu alaikum. We made a promise when we launched the refreshed BISB brand last year and took bold step and never looked back. Our business vision was built on this. Our DNA, our brand values and guiding principles as a bank was born from this. And all our people work hard to achieve this. Here are a few of our bold success stories this year. We launched our YouTube channel and kicked off our Sawalif BISB series, where we aired exciting debates featuring our bank's senior executive and leading industry professionals from different industries and sectors in the kingdom. Sawalif BISB has been a huge success and has tackled every topic under the sun, starting from discussing the importance of digital platforms during COVID, which featured our very own head of retail banking, Dalal Al Ghais, or having an open conversation about the future of open banking with our head of IT, Osama Nasser, or spreading awareness on the difference between traditional and conventional banking, led by Sheikh Dr. Abdul Latif Al Mahmoud, chairman of our Sharia Supervisory Board. Allow me to introduce Khalil Al Qahri, a Bahraini entrepreneur and YouTuber, the moderator of Sawalif BISB, who has a short message.
السلام عليكم، معكم خليل القاهري، رائد اعمال وصانع محتوى. ارحب في حضوركم الافتراضي اليوم. ابى اتكلم عن التعاون اللي صار مع بنك البحرين الاسلامي في برنامج سوالف الاسلامي. برنامج سوالف الاسلامي يمكن الفريد من نوعه، لان اول برنامج قدمه بنك او شركه او جهه معينه، برنامج يكون سوالف عاده نشوفهم احنا في التلفزيون مقابلات وهاي، لكن هالمره تميز فيه بنك البحرين الاسلامي، وهاي اللي يخلي رؤيتهم الانوفيشن الابتكار، انهم دائما صحيح انه يفكرون في الابتكار، لان الابتكار مو بس تكنولوجيا، مو بس اشياء تسويها ابلكيشن، الابتكار تسويها في كل الخدمات والاشياء اللي قاعد تسويها حتى في الماركتينج والبي ار. وكان هذا التعاون اللي انتج سوالف الاسلامي. تميزنا في سوالف الاسلامي انه كان اول برنامج بعد يعرض لايف انستغرام بكاميرات دي اس ال ار، وكان مختلف لاول مره في البحرين نقدم برنامج بهالنوع. هذا اذا دل على ان التعاون وثقه بنك البحرين الاسلامي في الشباب انه يقدمون اشياء كذي هو اللي انتج شيء يعتبر جديد اليوم. اللي يميز بعد سوالف الاسلامي انه ممكن نقول عنه برنامج راح يتم على طول، يعني انت اليوم قاعد تسوي محتوى على الانترنت مو عشان ينشاف مره وخلاص، في حلقات وايد ممكن تنشاف عقب 3-4 سنين وللحين راح يكون لها صدى وراح يكون لها فهم، لأن المعلومات اللي فيها مستمرة. فأنت اليوم قاعد تسوي إرث على الإنترنت، وهذا اللي المفروض تكون فيه صناعة المحتوى. صناعة المحتوى المفروض تكون بهذا الشيء. في الأخير قبل لا أختم أبي أشكر بعد تيم التسويق والبي آر على صبرهم، على تعاونهم، على انفتاحهم للأفكار. سر من الأسرار يمكن ما الناس مو وايد ناس تعرفونها، إني أنا يمكن في معظم الحلقات ما التزمت بالأسئلة مثل ما هي، وكانوا مرحبين، يعطون مجال ان الواحد يطلع اللي عنده، وهذا اللي يساعد ان الواحد ينتج شيء يفتخر فيه. اليوم انا افتخر في شراكتي مع بنك البحرين الاسلامي، شاكر لهم هذا المنتج اللي طلع بسبب ايمانهم بالشباب، ايمانهم بالافكار الجديده، ايمانهم بالانوفيشن. شكرا بنك البحرين الاسلامي، شكرا لحضوركم مره ثانيه.
We kicked off another series on YouTube, خوش كلام, featuring one of our senior RMs, Nasser Al-Tattan, simplifying complicated financial topics that matter to our customer and the public in general. This year we launched initiatives under Jude, our CSR platform, which we introduced to you all last year, focusing on two pillars, education and innovation. partnering up with Bahrain Polytechnic, providing support through our Zakat Fund by donating laptops to a select number of students during COVID. We provided our seasoned advice on how to update their curriculum to ensure their students are future ready, and participated as a guest lecturers to host a number of webinars. We also rolled out training programs within the bank so students could gain real-life experience before even entering the world of banking. As for LinkedIn, it's another key success story. We have completely transformed the face of what traditional companies are doing and have found new ways to engage with our audience, creating our own community of followers. Our campaigns reached more than 195,000 members and delivered more than 2,400,000 impressions. And we are in the top 5 percentile in terms of platform engagement and activity this year. But it's more than just numbers, because we celebrated the success stories of our employees. We shared our bank's achievements. We revealed the hashtag faces of BISB, sharing the stories and lives of the people working at our bank. I'm sure you know our brand ambassador of innovation, Omar Farouk, who tried every experience there is to try in this world. As a Bahraini social media influencer who came up with a simple idea to change the world, we chose Omar because of his unbridled passion to make an impact and change how people see things, which is what we are all about at BISB. We wanted to be innovative in how we went about communicating our digital achievements and speak to our audiences on the very digital platforms they are on. So, whether it was about how customers could top up their Atujuri accounts online, or announcing how we launched our latest open banking service in April, or how our customers could transfer up to 5K from their credit cards to their saving accounts instantly, or applying for a credit card online. Omar announced it in his signature creative style. Before I go on to our next milestone achievement, allow me to introduce Omar Farouk himself.
سلام اخواني واصدقائي من بنك البحرين الاسلامي. بما ان موضوعنا ابتكار، خلينا نجرب حركات جديده شوي. من وين ابتدي؟ صار لنا تقريبا سنتين تقريبا مع بعض. قصتي انا مع بنك البحرين الاسلامي. ما نبي نتكلم عن ارقام، فيوز، انتشار، الحمد لله. لا، ابي اتكلم اكثر عن تعاملي الشخصي مع ناس صاروا اخواني واصدقائي واكلمهم حتى بشكل يومي، غربلتهم، واتكلم عن الكل هنا، من السكيورتي اللي عند الباب الى ابو امين، الى دلال، الى الايفنت العيد الوطني اللي جيت لكم ورقص وياكم ليوه، كل هاي الاشياء الجميله. اذا بنتكلم عن الابتكار، شهادتي مجروحه في الابتكار الصراحه، ويمكن أنا واحد يطمح لهذا الشيء. أشوف أن بنك البحرين الإسلامي بالعكس يرضي طموحي أن ناس يأخذون الخطوة ويروحون بكل جرأة لخطوة الابتكار هذه. ممكن تصيدنا مشاكل أو لازم تصيدنا مشاكل، لأن بقول لك ليش، بس بجرب حركة. أقول لك ليش؟ لأن أنت لما تقود مسيرة الابتكار والإبداع، قاعد تجرب أشياء جديدة، قاعد تجرب حركات جديدة، وهذه يمكن توديك في أغلاط، قصور، أشياء ما تصير بيرفكت، مع أن إحنا كلنا نحب البيرفكشن. وهذه اللي يمكن تحس إن ممكن الناس ينتقدونه، ممكن ما يصير بالضبط اللي تبيه، بس أنت قاعد تصنع عالم البنوك الثانية إن يمشون عليه بهالدرجة. بسم الله. هلا، عليكم السلام. عشان ما يدعموني، عشان ما أطول عليكم، أنا وايد فخور إني أكون جزء من عائلتكم، وما ودي إن القادم يكون أجمل. الأجمل هذه وايد بسيطة، أبي القادم يكون وايد أجمل، وايد أقوى، وايد مبتكر. سلام.
We partnered up with Benefit Pay to launch Tap & Go. To announce this, Omar partnered up with another local Bahraini SMI, Filprachi, to publicize this groundbreaking achievement. This Instagram post alone received 19,373 views and counting. Because the fact is, collaborations like these are the only way forward if we are going to truly come up with innovative solutions for the problems of today's world. One of our biggest milestones this year has been partnering up with CBB alongside the leading players in Bahrain, including ADB, Bank ABC, Benefit, Ila Bank, and MBB, to launch FinHub 973, the CBB Digital Lab, the Kingdom's latest open API innovation platform. FinHub 973 will be fully supervised by the CBB, will enable the testing and development of fintech solutions in order to deliver superior customer-centric digital capabilities. It's initiatives such as these that promote innovation on a local level, further enabling the Kingdom of Bahrain's fintech sector to thrive and cementing its position as a fintech hub in the region. And we couldn't be prouder to be part of this new journey. This brings us to our next panel discussion, moderated by our very own Dana, which will focus on the topic of our theme for today's event, celebrating the spirit of innovation and collaboration.
The theme of this event has been all about celebrating the spirit of innovation and collaboration, which is the exact topic of our second panel discussion today. Because in order to truly innovate and come up with new ideas and pave the way for a new way of thinking, it requires multiple industry leaders all working together towards a common objective. Our panelist for this session is Mr. Abdullah Al-Muayyad, CEO of Tarabut Gateway, who built his entire company on the principle of empowering everyday individuals and enabling them to make better financial decisions by giving them the right digital tools to understand their financial information. Mr. Abdullah, tell us more about the journey that led to launching open banking in the Kingdom of Bahrain and your experience with the CBB's regulatory sandbox. What are the next steps for Tarabut?
Tarabut Gateway was established 3 years ago. People generally have more than one bank account in the GCC. We wanted to basically embark on establishing and solving that problem. We started by looking to integrate into banks and trying to support banks on giving and developing a customer experience to really allow customers to see their various accounts on a single platform. We then realized that there's a deeper opportunity here and a deeper issue or a challenge that we can solve, which is really create an open API infrastructure. At the time, it hadn't happened in the GCC or in the MENA region. We started exploring the opportunity with the Central Bank of Bahrain about open banking, what it's all about. We started hiring people internationally that have been on this journey before. We launched open banking. We got into the sandbox. The CBB liked the idea, and we started developing the technology to be able to do it. Gladly so. I think today we are the largest open API and open banking platform in the MENA region. I'm speaking to you right now from Dubai. Just about 3 months ago, we were able to close our first round of finance, bringing in some of the leading venture capitalists and venture capital firms all the way from London to Abu Dhabi to the US to Bahrain to invest into TG. What's next for TG is we are now established in the UAE. We're licensed by the ADGM, DIFC as well. We're hiring. We're hiring about 25 people in the next 3 months alone. We've expanded our operations in Bahrain. We have POCs going on with some of the largest financial institutions in the MENA region, including Standard Chartered Bank out in MENA, including National Bank of Kuwait. And we're super excited about the work that we've obviously done with BISB as one of the pioneering partners that have supported us from day one to get us to where we are today. So we're in our growth stage. We're doing another round of financing to reach our growth and scale up. our operations to the rest of the GCC and even beyond.
To Mr. Hassan, what do you believe the future of digital solutions to be for Bahrain? Has the adoption of digital platforms changed with all the things considered in 2020?
First of all, I think the best thing about this partnership we have with Tarabut is, you've got the oldest Islamic bank in the country joining hands with a local Bahraini-owned company. This is not Microsoft or IBM or Oracle. Maybe I should say yet, Abdullah. But to do it with a local Bahraini company is just, to me, is an absolute icing on the cake. So I am very, very proud of the fact that we and this is a target for BISPs to continue to engage with local Bahraini companies or Bahraini talent. The future of digital in Bahrain is there's no way back right now. Pre-COVID, everybody was pitching digitization and online and so on. I think post-COVID, it's either you digitize or you die. I see a lot more companies going towards online or e-commerce, but certainly not enough. There are many companies, big names in Bahrain, that still do not have a proper e-commerce platform. There are a few aggregator e-commerce that give you lists of all these sellers, but I think we still have a long way to go. Now, COVID has accelerated the need to digitize. So while I think there is still not enough in Bahrain, there certainly has been tremendous progress in terms of people, not just end users, but also vendors offering digital services. Pre-COVID, we used to say, well, it's for saving costs, it's for targeting millennials, it's for this, for that. But post-COVID or during COVID, it's basically for personal safety. You want to minimize human contact. You want to minimize touching papers. You want to minimize touching banknotes. You want to minimize people being in one location indoor for more than 15 minutes. So the future of digitization in Bahrain is, I think, well on its way. I think it's been catapulted by the unfortunate event of COVID. But as we say in Arabic, رُبَّ ضارة نافعة. There's a silver lining in every cloud.
To our guest panelist, can you share with us your final thoughts, Mr. Abdullah Al-Muayyad?
I think the future of banking will be different depending on the person that is leading that bank. I think that innovation presents an opportunity and a threat at the same time. Dealing with people like Hassan, who see the foresight, who understand and appreciate the opportunity that it presents, gives a further opportunity to embrace that and capitalize on it. I think for as long as we acknowledge the opportunities that are presented by technology, and the times have changed, if we wait for technology to disrupt the industry, I fear that in some cases it might be too late for certain incumbents to come and capture the opportunity. We've seen this in many different industries in history. We've seen this happen to logistics. We've seen it happen to the F&B sector. We've seen this with the introduction of hospitality, with the introduction of Airbnb. Banking is no different. The only difference here is in the banking sphere, we have the opportunity to learn from other industries. And if we don't, then the technology is coming regardless of whether we are prepared for it. We can take the Kodak example as a perfect one for that case. Banking is no different. It will present the greatest opportunity. We hear about things like the future bank is going to be a faceless bank, or banking as a platform, and the importance of AI analytics. These are all things that not many typical bankers understand or appreciate. As long as we don't change that mindset, it becomes a threat. But if we as bankers start reinventing ourselves and appreciating that there's a further opportunity for us to capitalize on, then I think it presents the best opportunity that the banking world has seen, at least in the last decade.
I absolutely agree. You know, Bill Gates said, you know, we need banking, but we don't need banks. I think banks need to realize that while there is threat and competition comes from other competitive banks, but the real threat to the existence of classic banks comes from non-banks. Now watch the bank of Facebook, watch the bank of Amazon, watch the bank of Google, watch all these companies are who have billions of cash, and they have mounds of data and research and the ability to do whatever they can do or they would like to do. So you have these two forces, the resources and the know-how. And I think the competition to banks will be fierce from the non-banks. And let me be more specific. I think the future for banks is in payments. The future in banks is either payments or movement of funds. It's in open banking, in transparency. It's in having enough ability in the platforms of these banks to link their clients with other platforms. You know, you log on the BISB app. While you're on the app, do you want to order food? You should be able to go to a link within that app and do it. You want to, and thanks to Tarabut, you want to check your accounts at another bank, you can still do it from the BISB app. So I think the future of banking has to do with banks need to stop being banks. They need to try their best to become technology-driven companies that happen to offer financial services. There are platforms worldwide right now of companies starting in the US, of companies offering mortgage loans, personal loans, car loans. You no longer need to go to the bank to get a mortgage. You don't need to go to the bank to get a personal loan. And the WeChat app in China is the biggest threat to the existence of any financial institution worldwide. Can you imagine what a bank would look like when you put them next to the capabilities of WeChat? So it's the shedding the skin of the way of doing the banks used to do it classically, and just looking at these young companies and learning the way these companies think, the way they plan. And most importantly, rather than look at these companies as adversaries or competitors, join hands in some way or the other and begin small steps in learning how to transform themselves into more tech-savvy organizations.
Thank you once again to our panelists for your time, and this is where I leave you today. Allow me the honor of handing the floor over to our CEO, who'll be wrapping up today's session.
What a day. I hope we've managed to keep you with us, considering what I call the screen fatigue. Last year, we announced that an ambitious project for BISB. We called it a cashless ecosystem. And the whole idea behind it was that we wanted to offer school children the ability to utilize technology as a mode of payments. So instead of the parents giving the children the daily allowance or the weekly allowance in cash, what we have now in partnership with MasterCard, we will give the child a card or a wearable device that they can wear and use it for a method of payment at the school at just about every outlet in that particular school. They can buy books, they can buy food, they can buy entertainment, whatever the school happens to offer that day. What's even better is that it gives the parents a view of where the money is being spent, and it gives the parents the ability through their BISB app to fund increase or monitor the activities of spending of each child. COVID slowed us down for obvious reasons. You understand the schools shut down, and so we've slowed down that project a little bit, but I'm happy to announce that it's back on, and inshallah I've been promised by the team that it will be launched no later than the first quarter of 2021. This is a fantastic project because it's the beginning of many things that can come as a result of us doing that. While we're on the subject of wearables, to us, getting the younger generations in Bahrain used to technology is a critical thing. We need children to be savvy in terms of technology. We need children to learn coding. We need this society to become connected, because I think the government and as well as all businesses will work on becoming one ecosystem of connectivity. And I think COVID is a huge catalyst in that. To that effect, and in line with BISB strategy to assist Bahraini startups and Bahraini young children, we have launched several initiatives, one of which is the platform for selected young Bahraini entrepreneurs to come in. We will house them in one of our branches, an entire floor for them, and we will give them assignments and projects to solve, unique problems to solve, and we will fund them with some small grants to help them start. The winner will be selected after 6 months, and they will be also given a job to do within BISB, something that we are very proud of. Again, it's been slowed down by COVID, but inshallah we will commence it in Q1 of 2021 if we can. Let's stay with school children. One of the things that we wanted to do to encourage the utilization of wearables is a point system. So every time a child uses the wearable to buy something from the school, they get points. And they get these points for buying for buying books, learning supplies. They get points for buying things from for wellness, sporting goods, and so on and so forth. And the last thing, which we could not avoid, which is gaming. Gaming has become an integral part of the DNA of these young people. So part of the wearable program and the point program is that we will engage in offering gaming cards to students as well, where they get points in utilizing certain educational games and so on. So part of an entire gamut of small things that we can do to be part of the encouraging the younger Bahraini society to become connected and become much more tech savvy. We don't want to keep you much longer. At the end, I want to sincerely thank you for taking the time to join us. We'd love to hear your feedback. I would like to also thank my chairman, Dr. Assam Fakhro, and the esteemed members of the board who joined us today. I'd like to thank the central bank for their guidance, for being more consultative than regulators. And I would like to thank our esteemed panelists, His Excellency Khalid Al-Rumehi, Dr. Yarmo, and my younger brother, Abdullah Al-Muayyad, for their valuable contributions as they joined us from different, I think, parts of the region. And with that, I thank you again, and inshallah we'll see you for the same event next year. But wait, before I let you go, one more thing. The government of Bahrain has placed a huge emphasis the last few years on SMEs. We wanted to contribute and become part of the initiative of the government of Bahrain, while at the same time we wanted to solve a problem that banks are facing right now, which is what to do with the classic brick and mortar branches. So you're digitizing on one hand, and on the other hand you're saying, do I still have brick and mortar branches where people transact face to face? So at BISB, we'd solved two problems. One is we decided to launch a hybrid branch, which is a way for us to help people transition from the very pure classic branches into much more of a digital branches. And that's number one. Number two, we would capitalize on the new lifestyle of our target customers, the millennials and Gen Z and so on. And number three, equally important, is to show our support for Bahraini-owned SMEs. So I launched a challenge. I said I would like to open the first branch of its kind in Bahrain. We call it a cafe-style branch. And for that, we joined hands with the Chamber of Commerce. And for that, I'd like to thank Abu Bashar, the Sayyid Samir Nas, the chairman, for his undying support of helping us launch this. And the scheme was as follows. We said we want Bahraini-owned coffee shops of a certain size. And we did that so that the big guys do not come in and dominate this whole thing. So we said of a certain size, to give us proposals on how they would open a coffee shop inside a bank branch, what it would look like, how they would run it, and give us a business plan. If I'm not mistaken, I think we've received close to 6,000 applications. And we've had a team within the bank and the chamber looking at coming up with a short list. We came up with a short list of the target companies. And to further sweeten this pot, I made the statement that the first 2 years of a new startup are the most difficult because expenses are high, especially fixed expenses. One of them is rent. So I said the person who wins and comes to open that branch at the BISB branch, I will charge them 1 dinar a month in rent. For the first 2 years, 1 dinar a month in rent. So you have this young startup coming or young business owner coming, and he or she does not have to worry about a huge fixed overhead cost called rent. The finalist has been chosen. It's a local coffee shop, and the work is being finalized right now. Inshallah, once it is completed, I think they're doing the last finishing touch, we will announce it, and we'll all celebrate by launching this new branch concept. So you'll walk into our Rifa branch, that's what it's going to be, and you'll smell the coffee, and you'll see a modern style coffee shop with all the amenities in it, and across from it will be all the digital banking media, and the face-to-face transactions will be in the mezzanine, away from view on the first floor. It's a unique concept, and we hope that for us it's a learning experiment on which we can build. And as I said, inshallah, once the opening is announced, we will send you all an invitation. We'll hope that you are there, safe distance, of course. And on that, this time, really thank you for joining us, and inshallah, I hope to see you all next year, and please stay safe.